100,000 years ago, before kings, before language, before fire was even trusted to stay lit, one man raised a stone, one scream broke the silence. And just like that, the first crime in human history was born. This is not a myth, it's not written. It lives in our blood, in our instincts, in the dark origins of mankind. Before fire was trusted to burn through the night, before laws, kings, or gods, there were only tribes, small clusters of early humans, wandering through a world ruled by tooth and storm. They feared the dark, feared the cold, but feared each other most of all. There was no language, only looks and grunts, no history, only memory, no good or evil, just instinct. Fire had just been tamed, flickering weakly in campsites surrounded by shadows. It gave light, warmth, and a strange new thing, safety. But that safety was fragile. The night always watched. In one such tribe, huddled by a fire on the edge of a forest, our story begins. They were survivors, hunters, wanderers, without names we'd understand. But among them were two brothers, bonded by blood and divided by fate, Kael and Dren. One was admired, one was ignored, and between them, a fire was about to be lit that no one could put out. Kael was everything the tribe respected: strong, quiet, dependable. He could bring down prey with a sharpened stick, climb cliffs barefoot, and keep a fire alive through a storm. His presence calmed the tribe. When Kael returned to camp, people moved aside to let him pass. Dren was smaller, quicker with his eyes than his hands. He tried to prove himself, but his kills were rare, his fire died fast, and his presence was forgettable. The tribe fed him but didn't really see him. Kael didn't mock Dren, but he didn't notice him either. And sometimes, that's worse. Day after day, Kael's shadow stretched longer. Every victory he earned was another reminder that Dren's hands were empty. But envy doesn't scream, it whispers. It grows like mold, quiet, cold. Dren didn't hate Kael. He hated how invisible he felt when Kael was near. And somewhere deep inside, something began to whisper, "You will never be seen while he stands in the light." Dren didn't plot like a villain. He didn't draw maps in the dirt or sharpen a blade with malice. He simply followed instinct. Kael had killed a large boar that day. The tribe celebrated. That night, he took a portion of meat and walked to the river to clean his hands and tools. Dren followed, quietly. The stone he picked up wasn't special, just round, heavy, and cold. Not made for killing, but it would do. The forest was silent. The moon was full, casting pale light through the trees. Kael crouched at the water's edge, unaware. Dren's breathing slowed. His grip tightened. He raised the stone. There was no scream, no struggle, only the sound of bone meeting stone. Kael collapsed forward, his blood mixing with the river. It was over in seconds. No fury, no triumph, just breath and silence. Dren stared at what he'd done. Not with horror, not even with pride, but with a kind of emptiness, like the world had paused to listen, and for the first time, saw him. Dren dragged the meat from Kael's satchel. He wiped blood from his hands, returned to camp, and threw it to the tribe. A few nodded in approval. No one asked where Kael was. Not yet. He sat by the fire, pretending to chew, pretending to exist. The tribe around him laughed, told gestures and grunts that meant stories, the usual. Life continued, as if nothing had happened. But for Dren, everything was different. He wasn't invisible anymore, at least not to himself. The stone he used still lay by the river. Kael's body drifted just below the bank, and the night whispered nothing. As the fire crackled, Dren looked into the flames. The light danced in his eyes, casting shadows on his face. He hadn't planned this, not exactly, but he didn't regret it. In a world without words, guilt had no name. But the air felt heavier, the night colder. Something in the fire seemed to flicker, not from wood, but from fate. At sunrise, Kael was still gone. That alone was strange. 3 men left camp to search. They followed the usual trails, flattened grass, broken branches. Near the river, they found it. Blood on stone, footprints, and Kael's body slumped in the reeds. His skull shattered, his hands still wet. They didn't scream. They didn't cry. They just stared. There were no wolves nearby, no claw marks, no signs of a struggle, only one explanation. One of their own had done this. They wrapped Kael's body in bark and furs, carried him back to camp in silence. When they returned, the tribe stopped eating. Dren stood, his heart pounded. One of the elders stepped forward, holding Kael's broken necklace, the one he never removed. No words were spoken. None were needed. The tribe turned to Dren, and in that moment the air held more than smoke. It held judgment. There were no laws, no judges, no executioners, but they had instinct. They formed a circle around Dren. No one raised a hand, no one needed to. Dren looked around, at the faces that once ignored him, now staring like flames. He didn't run, didn't argue, because what could he say? He had taken more than a life. He had broken the unspoken bond that made them a tribe, trust. An elder stepped forward. His face was lined with wind and time. He pointed toward the trees, away from camp, away from fire, and Dren understood. Exile. It wasn't death. It was worse. No one touched him. No one stopped him. They simply turned away, one by one. Dren stepped beyond the firelight, into the cold, into silence. And with that, the first law was passed. Not written, not spoken, but carved into memory. We do not kill our own. The forest was no longer a place to hunt. It was a sentence. Dren moved slowly, barefoot, alone. Every sound now signaled danger. A crack of a branch, a rustle in the leaves. It all could mean death. He had no fire, no meat, no tools. The forest had no pity. The river he once used to clean Kael's blood now mocked him as it flowed by. Nights were the hardest. The cold bit into his bones. He tried to start fires, but nothing caught. Hunger clawed at his stomach. He spoke Kael's name once, into the dark. No answer. He wasn't afraid of dying. He was afraid of never being remembered, because even in betrayal, he still wanted to matter. Dren faded from memory, but the act remained. The murder passed into silence, but something changed in the tribe. They were more cautious, more alert. They watched each other longer, trusted a little less. And from that shift came something new: judgment. Over time, humans began to make rules, first in action, then in symbols, then in language, from stones to blades to words carved on clay. The instinct to punish became a tradition. And all of it began with one act, one stone, one brother. History didn't write Dren's name, but it never forgot what he did. We built cities. We wrote laws. We crowned kings. But behind every rule was a shadow. Dren's stone became a sword, then a prison, then a courtroom, then a bomb. We said it was for justice, for order, for peace. But the truth is, we never stopped being afraid of each other. His act repeated through time, on battlefields, in revolutions, in family feuds and empires. We learned to speak, to write, to judge. But that first crime, it never left us. We just gave it different names. No book recorded the first murder, no painting, no song. But we remember it, in the way we flinch at betrayal, in the way we demand punishment, in the silence after violence. Somewhere inside us all, we still carry that moment, The moment when survival turned against its own, when instinct became action, when the first human raised a stone, not toward a beast, but toward his brother. It wasn't the end of something, it was the beginning. Because that first crime wasn't just about death, it was about what we became afterward, human.